Well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome to Zycel's Tech Talk. My name is Tri Nguyen, and I am the product manager, sales manager here at Zycel North America. Good to have you here with us this morning. And today we'll be talking about how you can maximize the award-winning USG FLEX H Series with some of the new features that have just been released, both onto the on-prem firmware as well as the Nebula side of it. A little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A section and send me any questions that you may have as we go through this presentation. And so I'd like to just welcome you, maybe just by a show of hands, how many of you are currently using the USG FLEX H series today in your customer deployments or in your own offices? Just trying to get a feel of how many of you have already started using it. Thank you, Paul, Neil, a few of you have there. Great. So for those who haven't used it again yet, this is the next generation or the new generation of USG firewalls that Zycel has in place. That will be kind of what we move forward with in the future for all of our networking security firewall needs. So let's do a little bit of a quick intro of the company, who we are as Zycel Networks. We've been in business now over 35 years, 100 million devices making connections worldwide. We have over 700 employees serving 150 markets worldwide, and over 1 million businesses use Zycel solutions today. We are a company, so in our channel branch here, we operate and are your advocates for providing the products to your customers. So David, Andy, and Jacob manage their account managers for the different regions that we have here on this slide. We're here to help you. So if you have any pre-sales questions, if you're looking about partner programs, distribution, stocking, special pricing, discounts, whatever it may be, bring us on board. We're here to help create and help you to facilitate all of those kinds of things, make sure that your business can run smoothly and for your customers can run smoothly. So even pre-sales support, tech support, we can orchestrate all of that for you and with you. So please don't don't hesitate to use us in that capacity. We're here to serve you. And just a quick maybe update reminder, since all of this, a lot of people are number one question is about tariffs and things that are made in different countries. So just so you know, as you are talking to your customers, all of the Zycel products, firewall switches and access points, they're all NDAA compliant. So all the SKUs are, but there are select models that are TAA compliant. And we do have plans to move more of that manufacturing of more devices into our factory in Taiwan. So then that would also be TAA compliant as well. But this is just kind of a small subset of what is currently, and the part codes you'll usually see. The Zycel part codes that we'll use for that is usually ends in like a USAM kind of a part code. So that just means it's kind of like made for the USA um, for that made in Taiwan in a sense. So just know that a lot of the popular products that we have are already here and are TAA compliant, but we are continually moving more of that capacity in the coming months. So you'll see more of that. And so if you do have access to our price list, then we do put that status in there, what models are TAA compliant specifically, so that you have an easy way to find that out. We are also going to be creating kind of a list, a master list for you to be able to have reference of that easily, so that as you plan out your customers, as you plan out your deployments and such, that you'll have that information easily in your hands. So in 2025, the global average of the internet connection, your WAN connection, is approximately 210 megabits per second. It's been growing about 20% every year. And so we expect that it's going to be increasing a lot over the next few years. And so your customers may have the capacity, have the need for higher speeds, or maybe they have access to it. And so they're paying the same price to just get faster speeds. So internet service providers in more than 50 countries already offer 1 gig or faster. And now in the US, of course, you're seeing customers that are being offered 2.5 gig or even more speeds, like in that capacity. So the need for speed or the need for security while still maintaining those speeds is going to be, kind of the upgrade cycle that we're going to be seeing. Now, of course, you can still use existing products, but just know that when the customer does do any kind of test or speed tests, things like that, the current firewalls may show a lower speed than what they're paying for. And that's usually the number one complaint is, why am I paying for a 1 gig connection, but when I do a test, I only get 500 or whatever it may be. So that's going to be a continued push for you as a system integrator or a MSP to be able to provide security at that kind of level. Now, of course, you can sacrifice security and you can turn off things, which we don't recommend, and that increases the speed and capacity. But then you are leaving yourself vulnerable to different kinds of threats. And so there's a trade-off. If you want more speed, it's going to cost you more processing power, so it reduces the speed, right? Or if you want more security, then it's going to reduce your speed. So you have to find that balance, or you have to have a device that can maintain that kind of speed. Now, Bitdefender says cybersecurity threats will continue to be a challenge. So you know that things continually evolve and come out every day, and more companies are going to become victims, right? We're going to hear in the news about more ransomware attacks, more data breaches. It's kind of died down a little bit because maybe the public hasn't made a big deal about it, or now they're just accepting that it's kind of like every day. But you get so often, some large corporation, some large company that does have that kind of breach, loss of data, or they've been ransomed, and so that kind of pops up every once in a while. But your average businesses today, they are just small businesses in a sense, and they get attacked all the time, and so. But we don't hear that because it's not, multi-million-dollar news. Organizations have to embrace some sort of security stance. And it's up to you, up to us, up to Zycel to provide solutions that can help facilitate that stance, to focus on that, being prepared, but also being, proactive at mitigating these kinds of threats. There's a lot of IoT security challenges that are out there, or even defending against ransomware as the service offerings that are out there. And then also being able to provide adequate protection on the cybersecurity side in order to get even insurance for cybersecurity. So cybersecurity insurance is a growing business out there, and so in order to protect yourself as a VAR, as an integrator, as well as protect the end user customer from these kinds of threats and loss of business, you have to maintain a certain level of protection and security. So it's very important that you understand that for your customers, and help navigate them through those those thought processes on how to choose and what to install into those networks to provide that kind of protection. Because in some sense, in some cases, you could be held liable if there was considered negligence on maybe the network security side of things. You didn't kind of do your best effort to try to protect the network from these kinds of threats, and so there could be those kinds of things that happen. And we're seeing kind of cases that are popping up of that. So make sure that you're doing your research there to figure out what is needed to give you that kind of adequate protection, as well as if you can maintain a level that will uh, kind of allow for you to get cybersecurity insurance, then it's probably in that good range that you need to be, because these are sophisticated threats that are out there, and they're exploiting new vulnerabilities, different protocols that come out, and as new programs, new applications, and such come out there, it is a potential hazard or a potential threat there. There are a lot of unknown threats there, so you have to not only protect against what you know, but what you don't know. So something like sandboxing does help to protect against potential suspicious activities. But again, it's kind of a drawback in a sense, or it's a compromise of speed. If you want more protection, if you're more strict on what is allowed to go through, whether it be known or unknown, it may impact the speed or the convenience of what that customer is trying to use the connection for. So you have to find that balance and really uh, make a good decision, maybe trial and error in a sense, and maybe fine tune some of your customers based on what they use it for and their habits, to provide as much protection as possible, but trying to mitigate, the inconvenience factor of doing all this scanning. So unknown files can be isolated and sandboxed and then further analyzed through our cloud intelligence. So how that happens is unknown threats may pass through. Let's say it's a file. It's then sent to the cloud for it to emulate in a sandbox. It looks to see if there's any kind of weird patterns. Is it trying to make some weird connections to some remote server or things like that? Or maybe it changes some DNS information, whatever it may be. It tries to exploit something. So then the cloud sandbox identifies it as a malicious attack and provides that information to the defense intelligence part. And then it provides updates and signatures that then go out to other devices. So in a sense, it's all part of a ecosystem so that there are detections in any of the devices can then be provided for the entire ecosystem community. Anybody who uses a Zycel firewall that has the sandboxing functionality or even the malware portion, if it detects this as malware, then all of the signatures can get updated and everybody can become protected from that kind of threat. So, assuming that that may be, ongoing or spreading across networks, then it can mitigate it and defend against it. Just so you know, too, Zycel is a CNA, it's a CVE numbering authority. We basically are obligated and publicly create and announce as CVEs. So any kind of vulnerabilities, any kind of security threats, etc., Zycel releases this information as part of this worldwide organization. Pretty much all large companies that have any kind of networking equipment or any kind of software um, are potentially part of this. But one thing that Zycel is different is we're one of the first in the SMB market to receive authorization from the CVE and recognized as a provider acceptance level for NIST as well. So we're basically saying that we are very heavily invested in making sure our products are secure and providing fixes and providing information to the customers as quickly as possible in order to mitigate any kind of those vulnerabilities and threats. So that way, Zycel's serious about it, and that we take pride in what we offer, and that we don't want to just say, hey, you're on your own, tough luck, right? We are here to help you with our products, especially on the security side. And so, speaking more on the security piece of it, the USG FLEX H Series did win a CRN's Innovator Award in the end of 2024. So they announced at the end of 2024. So now we know that we are one of those the finalists there, or the winner of that. Our solution is the 700, like our 700H series, for example. They're all multi-core hardware. We use what we call fast path technology. It helps to increase the throughput while still maintaining protection of that network traffic. So it delivers kind of the best performance protection offering for the small business customers here. So we're really about bringing kind of enterprise level functionality features to the small business and then making sure that it's affordable, because before, in order to get this kind of throughput that you'll see from these kinds of devices, you're talking about thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in order to get this kind of UTM throughput. We have products that will provide port flexibility. All of the ports can be configurable, even on our lowest end USG FLEX 100H. When you get to the 200H series, you'll start getting multi-gig ports. And then when you move all the way up to the 700H, you'll have additional 10 gig and a 10 gig SFP plus fiber ports as well. Some of the models will come included with PoE so that you can tack on any one of our APs to be able to provide kind of Wi-Fi with this firewall router there. So it's integrated with that 30 watts of PoE power. You can use it for anything else as well. You can use it for a voice over IP phone or a camera or any other Wi-Fi kind of device that uses PoE. So it's all part about security that constantly evolves, so you don't have to worry about it. So it means all the detections, the security functionalities, we use vendors and partners to provide their expertise integrated into our devices. So we're providing kind of the latest threats, latest protection. So these are, some of the few multi-layer best-in-class security experts that we use to provide all those different kinds of services. Like Norton LifeLock provides us with the sandboxing functionality, WebRoot with the IP reputation, companies like Bitdefender and Trellix for the anti-malware, antivirus. So a lot of these you recognize, some of them you may not recognize, but they are some of the top industry leaders in their space and providing these kinds of solutions for the market. So we've been able to partner with them to providing these down to your customer level. And I am all about making sure that if you do buy a security appliance, that you utilize the security functionality. It's kind of like if I bought an alarm system in my house, but then never turned on the alarm or never used any of the features there. It's kind of a waste in a sense. You're not using it to its full capacity. But especially for network security, there's so many layers of threats. There's so many opportunities that different type of threat vectors that can potentially, um, you know, get into the system or cause havoc within the system, even if it's uh, wasting time because something is down or someone's computer is down because of a network breach or something like that. That cause inconvenience, that cause loss of productivity, all those kinds of things. So I would recommend that you do look into these features, whether you turn them all on or make your choices. At least something. You should have security. So there's malware, there's anti-spam, email security to prevent against phishing attacks, web filtering so people don't go to malicious sites or maybe even to sites that maybe loss of productivity. You can block them from going to whatever pages you want them to go to, not go to. IPS prevention, application patrol, blocking by GeoIP, by their IP address, blocking connections from countries that you don't want connectivity to come from. Sandboxing functions, reputation filters to make sure that the IP addresses are not marked as potential malicious IPs, using secure Wi-Fi functionalities for remote Wi-Fi connectivity, and then connecting with the different types of endpoint security like Astra or cloud email security, or activating hotspot management and being able to segregate those customers or clients, the guest network, from your private. So doing a lot of these kinds of functions in security is beneficial. And why is it important? You have people say, well, I bought a SPI firewall, it's good enough, right? So with an unlicensed hardware, it still provides some level of security, but I would say those are probably more legacy security things. It can hide the IP address. It can check, the packets for connections for the stateful packet inspection, make sure it's it's coming from the right sources, etc. It can block against denial of service attacks. It provides you encryption, VPN. But then the license side provides you all of those other features that I had mentioned earlier. So it's very beneficial to go with that. Somebody asked, where can I get this slide deck? I can provide it, or the video of this as well will be available on YouTube and on our Facebook page as well. Arnell asks, has logging been increased for the H series? How much logging is available? So there's logging with the H series on its own hardware. You can always add additional storage to the device to send it to, or you can have a syslog server. But what I would recommend is if you already have the H series bundle, if you already turned on the licenses, is to use it in Nebula. And that's our Nebula cloud platform that I'm going to talk about, which is what some of these added new features are part of. And so by adding it to Nebula and you already have the pro license with it, you're going to get 365 days of logs. So all of these security logs and information on threats, etc., will be sent that way, as well as using SecuReporter as kind of the integration within Nebula. It gives you reporting on specifically security things. So that's going to also be, a longer, the same kind of logging time, 365 days of logs. So you get that full log retention. So some of the features that we've announced and that is now part of the H series, and I want to kind of clear it all up, is the 19.0 on the Nebula side introduces centralized management mode via Nebula. Whether you use it in standalone or on-prem or cloud, they are now the same. Now, there are some things. So you can monitor the device, you can do firmware upgrades, you can manage the firewall licenses. Those were already there, but then you can also access the remote user interface through what we call SSH tunnel mode. And I'll talk about a little bit about why that is important. You still get to back up, restore all those configurations, but the new thing is that now the configuration sync between device interface GUI and the cloud GUI is now universal in a sense. So on the cloud side, you can now also configure the NAT, the routing, security policies, firewall rules, DNS. So all of the common things that you would need to typically configure is available in the Nebula Cloud interface when you log into it. Now, for more advanced features or maybe features that are in that on-prem mode that is not yet reflected in the configuration GUI in the Nebula side, you can still SSH tunnel mode to the device to configure those advanced features. The configuration of those kind of advanced features is still in Nebula in the configuration. There's just no view window, right? There's just no web page that has that exact configuration information for you to configure or edit. That's the only difference. But that configuration is there and exists. So that's where you have to right now until we start mapping some of those more advanced features as customers, say, hey, this is an advanced feature that I use all the time. We can pull that into the Nebula side so that it becomes visible on the Nebula side. So just so you know, just so it's clear, it's one configuration. If you can log into the interface, if you're logged into the interface directly at the on-prem, you configure it, it's going to go to the Nebula Cloud. It's going to be that configuration. If you go from Nebula and you SSH to the device, you configure it, it's still that same configuration. And then anything you can configure in the Nebula Cloud side of it, it's still that same configuration. So any changes you make on the Nebula, even in those advanced features, will still stay configured, even though you don't see them. Arnell asks, "Is there a configuration migration path for?" Yes. So I will provide that information towards the end of this as well. So I do have that answer for you, Arnell. So that's kind of the to clear it up. It is one configuration, whether you manage it now on-prem, on SSH tunnel, or on Nebula. It's the same config. So the advantage of that now is, we can utilize that to help you to migrate to newer devices or newer versions, or maybe they're upgrading from the 100H to the 200H. We can help to facilitate that a lot easier because now it's kind of a universal. It's just one. And so even from a backup perspective, it's doing the Nebula backups. It's doing all of those as you would normally do on a Nebula device. So some new standalone features in the UOS 1.32. So there's kind of that two pieces. The Nebula will upgrade the firmware. On the Nebula side is 19.0, but then on the device themselves, they get a firmware called 1.32. And 1.32 gives you those access to the Nebula stuff. But in addition, in standalone mode, you have access to these additional features that we've added. Support for Tailscale VPN, secure Wi-Fi as an AP controller on the device, as well as you being able to purchase just secure Wi-Fi. If you don't know those features, then you can look that up, or I usually cover it in another webinar. But it basically is an AP that you can use to extend your existing network without having to build your own tunnel, etc. You can put it anywhere you want on the internet, and it can build a tunnel back to your office. But you can buy those licenses a la carte. You don't have to buy the bundle in order to get that. There's captive portal functionalities, 802.1x authentication, layer 2 isolation, bandwidth management per user or per source IP now. You can do link aggregation, IGMP, DNS over HTTPS or DNS over TLS. You can do trace routing, and then application allow lists. So some of those are the standalone features. Now, some of these are mapped to the Nebula side, so you can configure them, but some of them are still on these on the on-prem standalone side. So you would have to configure them in through that SSH tunnel. Michael asks, is there a migration path for both on-prem to Nebula? Moving from on-prem, is there a migration path from the older Flex to Flex 500H? Yes. So the answer is yes on that as well. So the migration path there is from the Flex to the H series. So we'll talk about that as well through that configuration. Now, from a firewall perspective, we'll have to look to see, like, if you just replaced, if you had an organization that already had your firewall rules, what levels of those rules would get translated if you just installed a USG FLEX 500H. I'll have to see, but I know that there is a conversion tool from the on-prem side of it. So on-prem to Nebula. it should be fine. So there is a converter tool that I'll be talking about. Another enhancement that we've added to the H series is making it much more AI driven. So there's a lot of cloud intelligence in there that identifies the threats, analyzes them, being able to put them into the database, similar to what that sandboxing function is. But we also have then machine learning to kind of use that to grow stronger with any kind of potential attack. That cloud integration uses also, or we've integrated now two-factor authentication on the org admin level, as well as Microsoft's Entra ID sign-in to authenticate users, especially for the captive portal piece of Nebula. What AI agent does Zycel use? I'm not 100% sure on which one it is, but I can find out. I need to find out on what it is on the back end there. Ultimately, yeah, what's being integrated, I'm not sure. So the USG FLEX 700H series provides you with the same kind of offerings, the same numbering as well, positioning as your USG FLEXs today. So the H series just stands for like high performance model. So you'll have your 100H, you'll have your 200H, you'll have your 500H, and you'll have your 700H models. Now the 100 and 200H also come in a flavor that has PoE as well. So you'll find a 100 HP and a 200 HP. And the benefit of that is that it becomes a potential for you to add on another Wi-Fi device if you wanted to integrate Wi-Fi. Some of our customers have asked, well, why don't you have a USG Flex 100 HW or something like that that has built-in integrated Wi-Fi? But we know today's day and age that Wi-Fi changes fairly often. So if we were to put like a Wi-Fi 6 or Wi-Fi 7 integrated into this, it adds to the price, but then you're kind of stuck with the specs of that. And then especially when you get to a higher end model, most of those devices aren't being deployed inside the office space. It's put into a closet in the back room, wherever their WAN connection is coming in, which is not a good place for Wi-Fi to provide coverage in the workspace. So there's always a need to pull a Ethernet cable or something like that into the office space and deploy an access point. And with us providing a PoE port or two PoE ports, then you can inject an AP into the space wherever it needs to be to provide you the best coverage. So we have a USG Flex 50H that we just launched this month, as well as the 100H, 200H, 500H, and 700H. How to read this chart? Usually, you have to take a look at if you're doing full security, UTM throughput is the number. It's kind of the lowest, number that you can find because it's doing the most processing with antivirus and intrusion detection, scanning, etc. You take the number here, and usually I take a 50% to 60% guidance, and that would be probably what you would want to deploy for that kind of internet speed. So let's say, for example, USG Flex 100H, it shows UTM throughput is 1 gig. I would say that's comfortably for a 500 megabit per second kind of customer with all the services turned on. Now, of course, if you didn't use it for the services, then if you had some of the services that you weren't using because you already have your own AV, IPS type functionalities on the devices at the endpoint, and you don't want to use these kinds of things, then you can then get higher throughput speeds, up to 4 gigs. So that's probably more like 2.5 gig of throughput as an SPI firewall. So just keep that in mind. As we could see more of it too. Some of it can be more than the 50, 60, but that's my general kind of guidance rule, so that when customers do their speed tests, that they will still see their full capacity, even with all the security services turned on. You don't want to underpower it, and then they realize, or they do their testing, and they feel like their connection is slower than what they're paying for, right? So that's what we want to avoid. And so the price points are made in a sense that these are going to be very affordable, even between the 100 and the 200. There's not much of a price difference, but there is a larger performance boost difference here, as well as your going from that 1.8 gigs now to a 3 gig capable UTM, all the way up to a 4 gig capable UTM product with multi-gig ports and 10 gig. So just so yeah, and also all of the ports are configurable. So meaning that you can define what you want to use it for. You want one WAN, two WAN with load balancing. You want these ports to be the LAN. You want one of them to be the guest, guest network port, whatever it may be. You can divide that up and configure it as your need be. Now, the benefit of that is if you put it into the Nebula cloud, then you can standardize on that, and you could standardize on a kind of a cookie cutter configuration that you can then imprint over to any other new customer that you need when you're creating their new site or new org. So it really speeds up the process. Or if you have a same customer, but he has multiple sites that are just done the same way, then you can quickly integrate these features as your baseline over to these new deployments. So these are just kind of the license features again, just to reiterate the different license perspectives. So the 50 does have less licensing in terms of feature sets. So it does more of the content filtering and some of the anti-spam kind of content. But all the full UTM, sandboxing, intrusion detection, you do have to go to the USG FLEX at least 100 series or the 100 H series to get that. Um, so I think it's very important for you to make sure you do that. So all of the products, when you buy the bundled package of the license of the product, comes with the and the H series comes with the gold license. So it's basically everything unlocked, including Nebula Pro. So all of the licensing there for Secu Wi-Fi and Secu Reporter, all of that is opened up in the bundle. Now, if you buy the hardware only, we've made a decision that even if you bought the base hardware only product on the USG H, we're going to give you what we call Essential Pack. It's basically being able to give you some levels of security. So we're going to incorporate DNS filtering, URL threat filtering, IP reputation for that product without having to compromise your performance there, because the DNS part is not very intensive. It also provides you a new Nebula dynamic DNS service as well that you can integrate or use with third-party providers if you're using kind of that kind of remote access for your based on DNS to get to your IP address that might be changing. It's a dynamic IP. We have that service there, and also providing 360 cybersecurity monitoring and log retention as well. So that way you have threat visibility within the Secu Reporter. Cyber threats there might be there, any of the top IP attacks based on this DNS threat filter. Now, in order for you to get the full-fledged UTM kind of threat assessment and logging and monitoring of those features, like content filtering, etc., you have to go to the bundle package. You have to go to the full-fledged product in order to do that. But like I said, we want to give you some security, because getting just a hardware only with SPI, it's not enough. So it's included in the product. So it's not, it's kind of like what we're going to give you. I think there is that renewal though for an essential pack. So if you do decide to continue it, but it's a nominal fee. So I think it's like baseline, no matter what model it is, it's going to be a $50 street price per year. So that gives you these kinds of baseline threat protection. So at least though, you get that start protect from the beginning. But I think from a customer perspective, you can give that first year free, let's say, and then you can use the Secu Reporter information to show the threats and the reporting on what the purpose of protection or network protection is. And so some customers might be like, yeah, I don't want to pay, the price is too high, the yearly subscription seems like it's too high, what am I paying for? Using this and showcasing that to your customer is going to be that kind of that edge that you're going to have to convince them that, yeah, you do in fact need this, because if you don't have this at all, these are the kinds of threats that are going to be coming at you. And so that's going to cause you even more headache. I think in a lot of cases, people who have gotten ransomed, fixing the damage that the ransom had happened to the business is costing more than if they just had the insurance or the protection in the first place. So that's something to consider as you're talking to your customers. Now, the other thing that you might want to do, even though we give you the essential pack, is we also include a 30-day free trial on the full UTM suite. So you might as well, as you deploy to your customer, even if they don't want that service, enable it so that then you can get the reporting, you can get the threat assessment on their network for those first 30 days. And that's the best kind of thing that you can do when you come back 30 days later, provide them a report and said, these are all the threats. This is what web pages your employees are going to. This is the visibility that I have. This is how much bandwidth they've been using. This is the threats and the ransomware, malware things that we've blocked on the networking side from even penetrating through to your network. That report will be essential for you to go, hey, do you want to continue the service, or we can just, not have it, and these threats are potentially what we won't have this visibility, we won't have this protection layer for you. And most customers in that sense, once they've seen it, go, wow, I've been protected against 400 different ransomware attacks in this last month. That is a very convincing, compelling reason why they will subscribe to the service. And so that's what we want as well, right? Makes sense for you, makes sense for us, makes sense for the customer. And so we want to provide, again, best practice, um, you know, best of our ability to make sure that they're as safe as possible. I think, some customers may say, still, no, thanks. But you then have to, have that conversation. Well, if you do get attacked, if you do get ransomed and we contact you, it's probably going to cost you more. So just so you know, you're putting yourself at risk and you're going to have to take on that risk yourself, and in the responsibility of that. Um, so some of you have already asked, is there a migration tool? So yes, so when you do go to, you can search within our Zycel site, just the configuration migration tool. And there is a USG FLEX. It helps for you to move from, older models, the Nebula version models and the old legacy USG, or maybe like not legacy, but USG FLEX models to get you to the H series configurations there. So you do have to get it to at least a certain firmware version before you start doing the download and upload of the configuration files, just so that it can make sure that it maps it correctly. So that's something that you can definitely use to get customers to go to this layer of protection and that high speed throughput. Now, if your USG Flex is still working today and the speed is already still working, you don't need to increase your speeds and it's working, you might as well just continue to utilize that product and subscribe to the services there and continue to use it as long as you want or as long as you need to. If there's no need to move to the H series, then you don't technically have to. But of course, we would love for you to, because it does then provide you kind of the newest functionality. It does give you the future proofing of the product. So if they are up for renewal, they've been using that product for 3 or 4 years already, and they want to get something new, or because they're upgrading connectivity, which is what we think is going to be the driving factor. Is before they had a 100 meg connection, and now they want to move to a gigabit connection or a 500 meg connection. Especially now with things that are in the cloud. Everything's in the cloud. Everybody needs more bandwidth to do things. So the service providers are now offering these kinds of speeds to the customers. So when they do that, there's going to be that need. That's going to be the question. Do you want to still have security on a high level, on a high speed, or do you sacrifice security so you can still get your speed, with your current device? And I think most customers who are already doing security are going to want to upgrade their security appliance in that regard. So that's going to be the major factor. One thing I want to update to everyone here is, again, because Zycel is committed to security and committed to the CVE side of things and announcing all of that, we want to also clear up how are we going to deal with any kind of end of sale, end of life of the products. And so we now can announce to you that we have when we do announce something as end of sale, then we will have up to 5 years of support for those security services. So here I'm just going to go through what we can commit to. So let's say we end of market, or we end of sale the product. So we'll sell through the stock, and that's it, and it's done. We have no more units to sell. End of development, meaning end of no new features, no new enhancements to the products. 2 years after that end of marketing date. So let's say if I announced end of marketing today, we will still continue to provide features and functionality, new features, etc., for the next 2 years. But our focus will be to address like critical issues as well, um, that impacts the business operation, maybe stability, or the essential systems there that need to be maintained. End of vulnerability is going to be 5 years after that end of market date, meaning that we're going to be committed for 5 years that any kind of critical vulnerabilities, any CVEs that we announce that can, impact security related things, uh, will be fixed. And maintenance builds will be released for severe security issues that require immediate attention. So we will take action, as quickly as possible as needed to mitigate any kinds of vulnerability. So you can rest in peace that that the products that you sell today will continue support and services for at least 5 years. Let's see. Arnell asks, how are we notified of end of anything? Email, website access. So usually you'll see it in our product. You'll see it in the distribution side. The products will go EOL or end of market or end of sale. You can't buy them anymore. That kind of scenario. We also have a web page that announces any kind of end of life on our website. So if you do go to the support side, there is an end of life, end of sale page that addresses this, and it will be dated. It'll say this is end of marketing, and then it'll say we will support, end of development, end of vulnerability, and then when the actual end of life. So end of life is 5 years after that. That means no more security updates, no more hardware, firmware updates, no more security vulnerability updates. You could still use it with the existing security, like onboard security stuff, but of course that's going to change over time. So at that point in time, you're most likely going to upgrade. Let's say you're not using the security, you can still use the hardware still, and we will support the hardware warranty is 5 years after the end of life. So at the end of life, we'll support the hardware still for another 5 years in case there's hardware failures. But most of the security products, the hardware kind of needs the software to be useful, unless you're just using it as strict like SPI firewall or as like a Wi-Fi controller or whatever. If you're not using the UTM features, then it still will function in those ways. And so we won't lock it out, we won't break it, we won't do anything of that. Just so you know that just the security parts of it, from the licensing security, will no longer be updated. It'll still function, but just won't be updated, which is kind of, in a sense, not functional, I would say. So from the license perspective, end of sale, it's going to be a minimum of 3 months before the end of registration date. So licenses will no longer be offered for sale after this date, meaning that let's say I have a 2-year license. So end of marketing, the end of that 2-year license, we won't sell them anymore, 3 years from now, or right, 3 years in 3 years, or 3 years minus 3 months, because we're going to allow for you to basically have 3 months to activate the 2 years that will get you to the end of that life, right? End of life at the 5-year mark. So there'll be end of registration, and then there'll also be end of life. So there's going to be a point in time with licenses. Then we'll go down to 1 year. So the 1-year licenses at the 4-year mark, that's going to be the last time you can register those licenses to activate it. Now we do have exceptions. We can make exceptions. So in case you bought a 1-year license and you forgot to activate it, we could probably still prorate it to be the 10 months, whatever you have left. But that end of life 5-year mark is going to be still the strict, end of date. So that's going to be all. This is just a slide that kind of just maybe shows you a little bit more visibility of that, what we've been thinking. But this, I think, might be a little bit more confusing in some sense, trying to decipher where those little points are. But just know, when it comes to security and end of life of our security products, we're going to support it for that full 5-year term, from vulnerability to security licenses. So all those features and functions there. Does EOL mean I can't purchase UTM for Zywall 110, 310 after? Correct. So there's no, actually, the bundle license there, Seth, for like the 110, 310, those are also the licenses are like EOL. So even if you try to buy them today, you wouldn't be able to because before we could, but the some of the providers no longer supported us anymore in that product. So we had to EOL. We try to keep it as long as possible, but those models have been now probably EOL like 5 years prior to that. So it's been well, maybe not 5 years. That one was EOL'd a little later. So that particular model doesn't follow this new rule per se. Um, it's all of the USG flexes and H's that moving forward because it's on this new platform, on this new, new terms with those providers that allow for us to have that. Yeah, so Seth bought, there was no issues. Yeah, so those ones will still function until then. And then so those will be this will probably be the last time that you buy those licenses. So we've been pushing for the upgrades, over the past like 3 or 4 years now. So I would consider going to the H series when you do get a chance, because that's going to be the platform moving forward. And so if you haven't joined our partner program, um, we have our bronze and silver and gold. We want you to be in gold because then you get our max discounts through distribution. And to maintain that, we work through D&H, Ingram, TD Synnex, Wave, Target distribution, and now also Blue Star in Canada. So if you want to join, please do. It's free to join to become a partner. There's no cost to you, and you just get your discounts and get your support. You get your account reps there. Let's see. Arnell asks, difference between Flex and Flex H is just managed standalone and or Nebula. So the Flex series, um, they had two paths. The USG Flex, you had to choose both, either you use it in cloud mode or you used it in standalone mode. They were two separate configurations. The H series is just a single configuration, whether you manage it on-prem or on cloud, it's just a single configuration. So whether you want to a telnet to it, you want to CLI to it, you want to go to the GUI on the device, you want to go to the GUI on the Nebula side. Now, the Nebula side GUI is a limited subset of the configuration GUI. And if you want the full configuration, then you go to the on-prem device, whether again through the device directly or through the SSH tunnel via Nebula can take you there as well. So you still have access to the full configuration suite. So there's no kind of mix and match. If the feature exists on the device, it's going to exist on the device. Some of it features, majority of the features can be configured in Nebula now, but then some of the advanced features you can only do on the device itself, standalone. It's not standalone. I'm not going to call it standalone mode. I need to get it out of my head. It's called on-prem, so just on-prem mode now. Because standalone makes it seem like it's outside of the cloud, but it actually is part of still that cloud. Now you get a choice and path on how you want to manage it, or at that moment in time, which way is the best to manage it. And then the H series also is more powerful. It's more enhanced and also uses a new OS compared to the Flex series. And that new UOS in the H series is what is going to be the new OS moving forward for any future Zycel security products. Are there plans to add more similar to the USG Lite 60AX? There is, if you continue to buy more of the USG Lite 60AX. We did have plans to it, but it's kind of like on that limbo. We want to see kind of the progress. Is there a market for the USG Lite 60AX type product on that lower end, the sub 200 mark? But then if we do add anything, it's probably going to be, more, I would say more expensive or, more a higher end version. Because right now that one's a 2.5 gig. We're probably going to see a 10 gig version of it or maybe a 5 gig version of it. So it's kind of in that space now that it's like it's teetering on the USG Flex 100H price points. So it's going to be, we have to see how we navigate that. The plan was to have a lower end model, but that one didn't really do very well, like our USG, our SCR 50AX in terms of really getting, the run rate that we wanted on that lower end. So that's where the 60AX is kind of just taking over that space. I was reading that client VPN is subscription now, not free. That's correct. So client VPN, you can still use some built-in functionalities, like if you L2TP over IPsec. But if you want to use IPsec VPN, which is what we recommend, then it's a subscription now, or it was a one-time fee before, but now it's basically it's like $25 a year for VPN per device. But it's going to be more secure and it's going to be faster as well using IPsec versus like L2TP, which is not as secure. It's a lot of it is because a lot of the Windows support and such, they've dropped that level of kind of encryption VPN. You can still do it with like your phone on the L2TP side for the free VPN stuff, but again, that's going to change as well as people are getting or needing more security. Why use IPsec versus Win VPN options? It's about configuration. The encryption level of the Windows-based VPN option is usually using like L2TP over IPsec, and the encryption levels are usually lower than what IPsec can do. And so it's convenient in a sense, but again, you're sacrificing convenience for security. And so that's kind of that choice. So more and more devices now, even on the Win option, I think as I don't know when Windows 10 leaves as well, they've already started rolling out or de-emphasizing the built-in VPN functionalities of these devices. So you're having to choose either SSL VPN or IPsec. Now, SSL is not great, I would say, because it does use the local machine to do the encryption portion. And so it's a lot slower. So it depends on what you're doing. If you're just using it for an internal web page connection to like an internal system, like a CRM, then it might be okay to use like an SSL or use like a lower speed type. But most people are trying to transfer files, etc. That then you want to use IPsec. Is there a doc that discusses IPsec versus? We don't have one specifically. I can ask our system engineer to kind of come and or provide a do some research there and provide a document on that if you're interested. You can always email me. So here's my next slide is if you want to connect with us, Zycel-US-channel on LinkedIn or Zycel America channel on YouTube. It's where this video will also be posted as well as all the other videos that we've done in the past. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn if you like. Just search for Zycel Try. That's TRI. So just type Zycel Try and you'll find my picture. And we've already answered a bunch of questions. If you do have any more questions, you can still ask them. Or anonymous, if you'd like to send me an email, you can send me an email at tri@zycel.com. You can request on that IPsec versus WinVPN there. And I can get my our systems engineers to take a look at that and provide you some sort of comparison document there that discusses that. Let's see, Michael says, how do we migrate the on-prem to Nebula? So on-prem to Nebula, I'm gonna have to ask I think you could still do on-prem because the on-prem you can convert to the H series. So what you do is you go with your on-prem, you use that migration tool, that converter tool that I had shown a few slides ago. You take your configuration, you throw it into there, you convert your on-prem USG Flex to a new H series model. And then the H series model is going to be now part of the whole Nebula ecosystem. So you activate that device is now in Nebula. So then now all those configurations that you had migrated to it is now part of Nebula if you want to manage it there. So that'd probably be the easiest way to do it. So go from USG Flex to USG Flex H and then put it into Nebula. I have a 500H on-prem and want to get the configure name. It's already on Nebula then. You just have to upgrade to the newest firmware there, Michael, of the 500H. Then you don't have to do any conversions. It technically is already there on Nebula if you just register it on Nebula. So if you used it on-prem right now, all you have to do is kind of, I would say, activate it onto Nebula or put it into your Nebula account. So if you don't have a Nebula account, you have to create one. And that becomes like your admin level. So make sure you just don't use like your personal email there unless that's what you want to do. But usually customers will put like nebula@mycompany.com is their Nebula like account. And then they put all of these devices and organizations under that. So then they'll have, let's say your 500H is your office. Then they'll make an organization called, office. And then they put the site is office one or main office and add that 500H, the MAC address and serial as part of that group. and then it should be able to detect that onto the Nebula side. If you want further help, Michael, you can also call our tech support line to get assistance on that, and just what I've told you, being able to convert the existing configuration on your on-prem, and then map it to, or not in configuration, sorry, and how to get your account made on Nebula and how do you put it into there. Let's see. Now, I'm an ISP for Nebula. Is there a way to give a client access to their Nebula company? Yeah, absolutely. So, I believe I have to double check if that's a pro feature or if it's still a base pack feature to be able to give different admin levels. I believe it's a pro feature uh, that you can give visibility to. So they basically have access to like log in. They can see their organization, but can't make any changes, that kind of thing. Or I think you could still give them full access as well, if you wanted to. If you wanted the client to be able to make their own changes, it's up to you on how you're, if it's an IT manager or if it's just somebody who just wants view access. You can absolutely do that. They just have to have a Nebula account, so they just have to create one. And so once they have a created Nebula account, you can actually bind or add them as a kind of an admin to your organization. You didn't get straight answers. Okay, so yeah, so I will, yeah, please send me an email. I'll try to follow up with my Nebula product manager as well, or our system engineer, to see how we can work that out. Or if you have your sales account manager, email your account manager, and then they can orchestrate all of that as well. You can include me. You can CC me on your question as well, but definitely include your account managers, because that's who I'm going to kind of forward the question to, so that they can field that with you and follow up with you as well. And so they can also pull in the tech support contact on what the answers were and how we can give you a better answer on that. But my understanding is if you already have it on prem, it's an H series, it technically just has to be added to Nebula, and the configuration's the configuration. There's not going to be anything you have to change. All right. Great questions. Very active today. Thank you for spending the time with me. Again, if you have any other further questions, feel free to email me at tri@zicel.com. I look forward to talking to you and seeing you at another event or at a future webinar. But until next time, hope you found this webinar informative, and I look forward to you taking advantage of the Zicel USG FLEX H series. Talk to you again soon. Thank you. Have a great day.